So we've had a little bit of a look, gents, at the official. I guess it is official, isn't it? It's Google have given us an official look at the Pixel 10 Pro. Interestingly, the Pro only, no other devices, in a nice colorway. I guess that segues into we've seen all of the colors of the Pixel 10. Well, at least unofficially, officially, if that makes sense. But hey, tell me which ones you're interested in the most.
I guess for me, it's most likely a Pro phone. Well, we'll see, but most likely a Pro phone. But it's that grayish color. The green is a bit too jade, I think. It's a bit too gold for me, the gold accents. So I'm probably going with the gray as much as it pains me, because the hazel last year was just basically gray, depending on the lighting condition. I
completely regret going for the hazel last year, if I'm being completely honest.
It aged really poorly to me.
Yeah.
Like I liked it at first because I think it was like the one splash of color that the pros even came close to, and then it was like, no, it's just gray, guys. Like, this is not like like I feel like I was really tricking myself into being like, this is going to be a really special looking phone. And it's like, no, especially once you have a case on it. It's like that camera bar is like just gray.
Yeah, no, I definitely get the impression that the more muted colors, the porcelain, I was going to call it white, and I'm thinking of the snow white or the snow version of the Pixel 7 Pro.
Yeah.
I think that looks a classic color. I think next time I'm just going to go with a plain white or porcelain version, because that seems to be the best looking as far as I'm concerned. But in terms of this new, is it Moonstone, I think they're calling it? Is that technically the official color for it?
The bluish gray, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like, does it really add anything to the lineup? I feel like I get it. They want to have the playful colors in the smaller devices, but give us one. Throw one bone our way this time. These renders as well don't really give an indication of what it's actually going to be like in real life. Because again, that's probably why I made the mistake with the hazel one. I was like, it looks really, really good in renders, and then 6 months later, I'm like, yeah, this is a great phone. I should have gone with the porcelain.
I have two thoughts on this. So first, I'll be positive first. I think the Jade, the greenish Pro, looks really good. I was fully not expecting. I was basically expecting a repeat of last year's colors, or at the very least, like very similar neutral tones. And Jade is a neutral tone, but I appreciate the like gold accent with the green. I am nervous that this is going to look a lot more faded in person than it does in these renders, but at least, judging by these renders, I like Jade a lot more, because I was, we haven't really talked about the 10, but I was basically like, okay, I'm getting the regular 10 in that like really sharp blue color, which is it's vibrant and pretty, and I think looks really nice. But I don't know, like I actually really like this Jade if it holds up in person. To be negative for a minute, back to Moonstone, which I think I agree looks really good in renders. My gut is that this is going to be like Apple's most recent like MacBook Air, which shipped in sky blue, but in person just looks like silver. Like it just looks like a slightly cooler shade of silver. And I think this is going to be a similar thing where like Moonstone looks really good in renders in the way that the sky blue MacBook Air looks really good on Apple's website. And then you like see it in person, you're like, oh yeah, I guess in the right light, it is a little bit more blue than the silver, but not really. And I can't escape the feeling that this is going to be, especially because Google's Pro phones, like many Pro phones, are always just so bland in a way, right? So I can't escape.
I wouldn't call them bland. I would call them businessman-like. Okay. I think that's a polite way to call them.
That's they're business. They're boardroom friendly.
It's professional. It's like professional in a way that's like boring.
Yeah, I guess bland might be harsh, although I would describe the aesthetics of a boardroom as bland. So I'm right there. But no, that's fair. And I actually do agree with you that I kind of liked that, like, the as you said, the snow Pixel 7, like that pure white Pixel 7 looked there was something like so bright about it where I was like, yeah, that works for me.
Remember the green and gold Pixel 7 Pro? Because that's what I ended up getting.
That was the one I wanted so bad, and I believe was the top of my requests. Because I
still think gold is gaudy personally.
I think
I
so
haven't
too.
Seen a good
but
gold.
Yeah, it's tricky. I feel like colors are tricky because like you are, I guess in a way, these smartphone companies are the safest if they don't venture out and try something crazy the way Motorola does. But then you get us complaining that they're not doing anything crazy. So then anytime they do, I feel like those are probably the colors that sell the least, or like the ones that are the most out there. Like people probably really do just want black and white as much as we say otherwise. And so I don't know. I get that it's a tricky balance, but I would really appreciate if one company was willing to at least do like one splashy pro color. And we're almost there with Jade, I feel, but again, I can't escape this feeling that in person it's going to be more of like a greenish gray than a green.
Yeah, I'm worried it's I mean, speaking as someone who picked up, I think it's a very, very similar color for the Galaxy S24 Ultra. I kind of regret going for the green. I think it's called Jade Green. I don't know what they call it. And I kind of regret going for that color option because it was one of their exclusive ones and one that they pushed a little bit. And it's always like, it's almost like a muddy gray. It's really weird.
It is very similar. You're right.
Yeah. It is. I mean, it doesn't have as like almost champagne side rails as the Pixel does, but these renders are a bit weird in that they, obviously the ones that have leaked currently are only like, they're not technically front on, right? Are they back on? How would you describe it? It's just the rear of the device, flat profile. You only get to see a sliver of the very minuscule metal frame. Like they look really matte colors, but then the leak Google shared the Moonstone Pro. They look a little bit glossy at times and then matte at other times. I just feel like if they went matte and matte, it would look so nice compared to, say, the glossy. And I know that's a big complaint people have. Glossy side rails are just something that we kind of have to either take or like just accept, if that makes sense. And I feel like Google are the only holdouts. So I'm literally looking at phones on my desk and there is not a single one that has glossy side rails apart from a Pixel. So maybe that might cheapen things a little bit more. I don't know. I feel like they've nailed some of the colors, and then other ones are like, yeah, it's almost like a half step. I have to admit, I really, really like the look of the limoncello option. It definitely looks pea green. I don't mean to be brash there, but pea green. I mean, it's definitely reminded me a lot of the name escapes me now. The yellow. The lemongrass Pixel 7 Pro, Pixel 7, sorry, which was fantastic. That was one of my favorite color phones ever. Yeah. It's like that, but slightly richer. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that the indigo is the one that people are going to look at straight away, or? Absolutely. Yeah, I think so.
It's a bit on the dark side, unfortunately. It's not vibrant. Like last year, we had pretty vibrant greens, and I guess whoever decides the color tones, we're going for that darker. I wouldn't say staid, but I think I would say there's a professionality to it again, like with the pros.
That's fair. Yeah, it's just enough of a pop of color, the indigo for me. I guess I do. It just, I can't stop thinking about it as like a successor to the really blue original Pixel, and so maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's just working from me on a nostalgia level, but like I think it's like just enough, especially because like most people are going to put this in a case anyway, that like really all you're getting is the accent from the camera bar. And I think maybe that's enough of a splash of color versus, looking at the other three phones, like Obsidian is black and Frost is essentially white. And then so you have limoncello, which I agree, I think is eye popping and is probably the other color I'd be interested in on the regular Pixel 10. Although it does remind me of Nike. It reminds me of like wearing like running shoes, that shade of yellow. But the camera bar itself is like fairly muted compared to the rest of the phone. And if you put a case on it, unless it's a clear case, I do wonder if that kind of downplays the splash of color you get from that anyway. So the only one you end up actually seeing that in is indigo.
I find it weird. In some respects that I know that Google does their color matched cases. You mentioned clear cases there. I'm surprised that they don't do that a little bit more often, or we're not going to get a clear case option from Google, because I think some people want to buy an official clear case, and I know they had some issues with those frosted ones with the Pixel 6 series.
Those were rough.
They were rough, and they've kind of fixed it since then by getting rid of that frosted, and I guess it's like kind of, it is frosted, right? It is, or etched maybe.
Yeah.
Finishes. I feel like maybe the color match is a way of extending the design way beyond the actual device. But I just think a clear case would work for these ones. Like you say, there's accents that they're not going to stand out hugely in a crowd, but I guess the camera bar does that automatically because there's nobody else really doing that. I'm surprised at the frost. I know you mentioned that you made a really good point that it's probably like going to look white in real life, but it almost feels like that step between where you'd go from the indigo to a genuine porcelain model. I'm surprised that we haven't seen any images of obsidian, like a deep obsidian, because that looks a lot more grey to my eye. And then this frost is like, I don't know, I'm surprised they haven't just put a plain porcelain one. Maybe we'll get something come launch. Obviously, these are pre-release leaks, so I'd be fascinated to see why they've only gone for 4 colours on this when they could have had that generic porcelain that I think a lot of people will pick up, right? I mean, I see a lot of people using the white iPhone 14 and 15 and even the 16. I think there's definitely room in the cheapest model, in this base model, which I think widely when we look at it, I still think this is going to be the biggest seller. I think this is the one that is going to be the most interesting to people, given there's hardly any real changes on the Pro tiers this year.
Right.
So Qi charging, the one hardware spec that we've gotten so far in terms of actual hardware differences beyond visual appearances is that these phones are a wee bit heavier, and that spurred some interesting speculation on our part.
What do you think? What do you think this extra weight is amassed then? Do you think this is just the magnets or the space for the magnet? Obviously, the thickness has increased by what is it, around about 0.1 millimeters? Is that enough room for Qi 2 magnets to be in the back of a Pixel? Because I want to ask that more broadly. I know that there's a theory that this could be that, but is that enough space? Is it going to be strong enough magnet to be that thin? I don't really know. I just want to hear what your guys' opinions are on it, really.
I don't know what the space constraints are on a Pixel or on MagSafe, to be honest with you. Like it's been so long since there was, I mean, okay, that's actually not true. This year there was an iPhone without MagSafe, the iPhone 16e, but I was going to say it's been so long since we had an iPhone without MagSafe. I would say that, like, it doesn't, at least when Apple does it, it doesn't seem to add, a lot of bulk to the phone. Like, I have an iPhone 16 and it is as thin as most non-Pro phones. I think it's 7 point whatever millimeters, which is thinner than the Pixel 10 series will be, right? Because we're at around 8.6, 8.5 millimeters now. So I think there's space, but obviously Apple's phones are very different. Like the way they build their devices is different. They often use smaller batteries and so on. And so it's just so hard to compare. And we otherwise haven't really had, certainly from major OEMs, especially in the US, we have not had an Android phone with Qi 2 built in. It's all been through cases. And so it's tricky. I think the thickness is kind of the wrong thing to look at. Ben Schoen put up a post yesterday breaking down the changes in thickness and weight. And I think the weight, the fact that these devices are all effectively the same size, just a tiny bit thicker in some cases, not all cases. The 10 Pro XL is not thicker, but otherwise just a tiny bit thicker and a tiny bit heavier, I think points towards, I just think there's a little too much smoke where I am leaning on the side of the Pixel 10 series having Qi 2 built in, especially with this Pixel Snap initiative that I just can't imagine them going all in on, like, branding for without it being a native part of the phone. But I've been down this road before, right? Like, I have been suckered into thinking we definitely are going to have Qi 2 on the Pixel 9, and nope, wasn't there. So it's same with the S25 series. So I don't know. I won't be too shocked if it's just through cases, but I think this is our strongest case yet for Qi 2 finally being built into a device.
And what's the counter, Damien?
I'm gonna rebuttal this by saying I think it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility for Google to just make this a case-based system.
Definitely.
And this thickness and added weight is something to do with thermals. So basically a bigger thermal or vapor chamber in the devices.
It's a very different chip this year. So you have to account for that too, right? Like this is
yeah, that's a great point actually.
Like we don't know what, we don't really know what Google's doing in terms of thermals. To be honest, I hadn't thought of that, but you're right. This could be a case where maybe they realize that if they give the phone a little bit more space to cool itself, like it's a more efficient product. So I honestly hadn't considered that, and it's totally possible. And I'm just over here coping and hoping that it's
yeah. I mean,
built in.
don't get me wrong. I would take magnets. I was going to say magnetics, but it's magnets over a bigger vapor chamber. But I just feel my gut instinct is if they have this effectively the same chassis, Google will now know. Say maybe they designed this 3 years ago. They may now be at the point where every single millimeter of volume inside the actual chassis they can account for, and they can work out where they can make the most returns on like certain things being moved into this position. I'm very fascinated to see what happens when we see our first teardown, how much is exactly the same and how much is going to be varied as a result of like these internal changes. Yeah. And as you say, the chip could be made of, I don't know, lead, like 6 grams. Like we're only talking about like small amounts, right? But it would be cool to see magnetics. I don't know where I'm getting magnetics from. Magnets for Qi 2 on the back of the device. And if it's part of that Pixel Snap initiative, I think we could see this whole ecosystem, I hate the term ecosystem, but ecosystem of accessories that nobody else currently has. Like, third parties are doing it, but if Google can do those first party ones and match Apple almost accessory for accessory, and then there's going to be crossover. I imagine there's going to be a lot of iOS accessory makers who are like, oh, sweet, we can do this now for one of the bigger brands on Android side of things. Granted, they don't sell as many, but I'd be fascinated to see how it all plays out because there's two sides to it, right? If it's the thermals, we're all going to be disappointed. If it's the Qi 2, it's going to be, oh, this is amazing. We've wanted this for so long. They just need to make sure they nail the fundamentals, right? Because Qi 2 as a standard does it mean faster charging or is it just the magnets as part of the wireless charging method? I'm not entirely fully up to scratch on it.
I believe Qi 2, and Abner, you might know this better than I do, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Qi 2 was primarily the magnets. It might have had a faster charging speed. I think Qi 2.1 is more focused on speed.
Okay. Yeah.
Or 2.2.1. Excuse me.
Okay.
2.2.1 has 25 watt charging, which is I believe Qi 2 is just 15 because that's what is in the latest iPhones, and those are Qi 2 compliant.
Okay, so I mean 15 watts via technically magnetically onto a charger is probably going to be fine, right?
I've
like
never had an issue with 15 watt wireless charging. I've always felt like that is the right middle ground between the heat that it produces versus the speed. I feel like once you start going faster, it starts getting hotter.
Yeah. I wonder now, you mentioned about heat. I wonder if they do add Qi 2, but also they're going to have to increase the vapor chamber or some sort of cooling for that, right? Because it can't just be, hey, the body of the device will cool. So I guess it's a twofold thing. Maybe both of us can be correct at the same time. But yeah, I find it a bit of a strange one because there's no concrete evidence either way, right? All the leaks to happen and there's no real true hard evidence that we know we're getting Qi 2 on the Pixel 10.
It's really interesting because both last week and this week, the three of us have talked about how these are very like similar phones to what came prior. And I feel like, this, less than a month out from launch, we should be sort of talking about these devices like we know everything about them because they are so similar to their predecessors. And yet I feel like we actually have a lot of unanswered questions at the moment over like, because what seemingly everything about these devices, save for the telephoto lens on the Pixel 10, is essentially like either software based or under the hood. It's actually a lot more difficult for like a render leak to actually reveal what's going on with these phones. So I hadn't thought about that, but that we're here speculating a lot for a Pixel phone that is less than a month out from unveiling. Usually I feel like we have a much clearer picture, especially with so few hardware changes this year. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic point. I think we're definitely in a phase where ordinarily we'd know the full inside and outside. And I think that's a good thing. I actually, when you put it like that, it actually is pretty cool that, it is. We're calling it the same device, but there's probably going to be a lot of surprises that we weren't anticipating, which incidentally, that's making me a little bit more excited to see what gets unveiled. Like, because I'm sure we'll have some twists and turns over the next couple of weeks, but
that is always the thing, right? These are gonna the weekend before you'll get that big final like product like drop where it's like, and here's all the software features and the marketing for Tensor G5, and you'll be like, or like the store page will leak, right? Like every time, but for now it's a much more exciting launch.
I mean, just mentioning software as well. I wonder how Google will approach if Qi 2 is added as a feature, because it is a feature, it's a hardware, and it could potentially be a software feature as well, because there's got to be something controlling how it charges and pairs with specific accessories. I do wonder how they'll handle that, because I know that the way that Apple's done it, certain things that you can add to the back of your phone will enable functionality, if that makes sense. So I do wonder what this will do to all these other potential accessories, because you could have a really, really cool subset of intricate accessories that we didn't necessarily know we ever needed or ever wanted on Pixel, and that have been maybe missing on Android period, because like I say, that Apple even has with their official cases, when you stick them on the back of your phone, it actually acknowledges the actual pairing of an official accessory, which is, I think, attention to detail level is fantastic. I do wonder if with Google will follow suit with that with their own cases, because that would be kind of cool as well. But interesting speculation on charging. Who'd have thought that would have been interesting at all? But yeah, let's get into some of the more specifics about the Fold, because I think this is one that probably is going to be the smallest of upgrades, right? And I know that we've seen some new colors of it. They've kept it snow porcelain and obsidian. I have the obsidian model. I would have preferred the porcelain, but what do you think, Abner? Do you think this is like a broach out towards more of a mass market appeal for foldables, or because we talked about it being they're more of a professional tool, the foldable, or aimed at? What do you think is the thought process behind adding two slightly different colors, I guess, from the rest of the foldable space?
So overall, I think the underrated change here is a bigger display. We haven't seen renders of the open screen yet, but I think that would be a noticeable, appreciable change, decreasing those inner bezels, especially in the context of what the Fold, Samsung's Fold brings this year. But it is. I know we will meant the long name, Pixel 9 Pro Fold, Pixel 10 Pro Fold, but it is interesting to see where Google sees this device, and I agree this is a professional one. But even ignoring the price, the multitasking capabilities are honestly still best suited. That larger screen, that inner screen, it's best suited for that side-by-side productivity rather than, say, I don't know, watching videos or playing games on a bigger squarish screen.
How do you think then that this is going to be sold to because I guess the foldable market's quite small, but there's still an ardent group of people who will buy foldables. So we literally had probably, it is Samsung's best foldable device in the Galaxy Fold 7. How are they going to position this? Because like when you're fighting an uphill battle to gain market share, and one of your biggest partners has just dropped probably their best foldable product, period. This is an incremental upgrade over the previous one, which was widely really well received, if I can even say it. But like, I don't know where this sits in the market personally. I'm really intrigued to hear what you guys think, because I don't think this can succeed.
The software hasn't leaked yet, but I don't think we're seeing it's for a foldable device. I don't think Google has put enough foldable features in it. Multitasking,
Totally agreed.
like either improved multitasking or like the biggest thing that comes to mind is the camera. You can see an external display, and I think Google Translate does something with it. I don't think there's enough optimization there. And again, I don't know how much you can really do with that, like the camera preview or showing a fun animation to get kids to focus. That's character. That's a big thing, but I don't think that's enough in the grand scheme.
Yeah.
Again, software hasn't leaked, but from the Android side of things, we haven't seen anything major yet. I wonder if it takes windowing for that to happen, for that to be a bigger deal. But it's the proposition that this year's refinement, I guess, is the best thing that Google can offer this year. But again, hopefully there's something that we haven't seen yet that makes the productivity story a bit more compelling, especially compared to others' impressive hardware.
I think Google picked the wrong year to take its foot off the foldable gas, because I really like in the way that I don't know who I would have okay, that's not true. There are people that I would have recommended the Fold 6 over the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, but I think largely speaking, I thought the Pixel 9 Pro Fold was the better piece of hardware. And unless you were really dying for like windowed multitasking, as you said, Abner, like I think the 9 Pro Fold software experience just felt a little bit cleaner and more mature. Again, like, you know, that's sort of how I felt about One UI 6 in general, was just that it needed a little bit of a shakeup, and it got it with One UI 7 and 8. You know, I struggle, kind of counter to last year, I struggle to think of like, who's gonna, you know, this phone is still really heavy. It's bulkier than last year's, so it's moving in the, you know, only by a little, by I think 0.3 millimeters, but it's moving in the wrong direction. And it's gotta, you know, live in carrier stores and Best Buy next to the Galaxy Z Fold 7, which looks super thin and futuristic and has better multitasking, and like I just, you know, has the same software policy, so that's good. You know, it sure, maybe if, you know, if the Pixel 10 Pro Fold is dust proof, I think people will appreciate that, but I don't think of the Fold 7 as a particularly unrugged phone. I think it's fairly protected from the elements, and I think waterproofing was the more important of those two anyway. I don't know, like I really struggle when you're talking about, assuming the sticks at $1,800, you know, yeah, it's a little bit cheaper than what Samsung's got this year, but I really think that this phone is gonna struggle next to Samsung. Like I just, like, for the first time in several years, Samsung like really hit it out of the park on leaping forward on foldable hardware, right? Like, we've seen this company kind of struggle to keep pace with its rivals, and it finally did it. And now Google is sort of in that position where it's like, okay, well, this doesn't feel like a modern foldable now. Like, this would have felt like a modern foldable a year ago, which is exactly the situation that like OnePlus was in last year when it released that special edition of the Open, the Crimson one. It's like, okay, guys, like, you're treading water a little bit. Like, I get that this is not a huge market yet, but you gotta keep going with the refinement. Like, you can't settle because someone is going to immediately pass you the minute you decide to do a minor revision to last year's hardware.
I think that's what's probably going to be a problem for Fold 11 though. Like, it probably strikes at a bigger problem. Like you have effectively the same product a year later. Yeah. When you have a couple of other brands out there, Honor, for instance, here in Europe, who are just saying, we're going to go all out with these foldable devices. This is how we gain our market share, which is an interesting way to do things. And then you have probably the market leader, Samsung, going out and making probably one of their best devices that they've ever made in terms of hardware. And Google is going to sit there with, I don't know, it does feel like a step back. It almost feels like while the Pixel 10 Pro can stand on its own with other devices of the same caliber, I just feel like this one, I don't want to say dead on arrival, but that's the only way I can describe it. I feel like this one's dead on arrival a little bit. If you were looking for if you want, which most people who want foldable phones do, want bleeding edge, this is not bleeding edge anymore. No. I think you're going to get great software, which is par for the course with any Pixel phone. You're going to get those updates day one. That's great. Yeah. And I'm pleased that that's a core selling point. And I think that's always going to be a core selling point. I just think with Samsung, you just get so much more versatility with the foldable device. You have DeX as well, which obviously you're already getting that desktop mode that I think people want from Google devices now. Obviously, we're going to see that come to fruition in the next year or so. I don't know. I could, depending on how it is to use, unless there's some insane software functionality that changes the game and changes my opinion totally. Just from a pure hardware perspective, I just cannot see anyone really going out and getting this over the rivals in the space. And this is why I asked a little bit about leading with the colors. Is this the only way that Google can do this year? This is how we know you have a new device as it has a different color. You have two different brighter colors to choose from. That's about it.
I mean, and it's like, okay, so you offer two generations of essentially just black and white, right? Like both the original Fold and then the 9 Pro Fold. And then it's like, okay, you have slightly splashier colors this time around. Like, I think, even if my concerns about Moonstone end up being right, I still think that's going to be a more attractive color than just like plain obsidian. But at the same time, it's like, unless they're going to walk out on stage, this would have been the generation. I don't think they're going to. I think this thing is going to be $17.99. But this would have been the generation to be like, okay, sure. We didn't change much outside of like the new chipset and a slightly larger display, or both displays slightly larger or whatever. But like, this is essentially, the Pixel 9 Pro Fold Redux. But now it's $1,500 instead of $1,800. And I think that's like a much more compelling. And we haven't really seen people do that with a phone launch. We've seen, like the OnePlus Open be marked down after a launch, but we haven't really seen anybody come out and be like, new product, new foldable, $1,500, $1,400. And I think because the other part of this is that for as long as there are Pixel 10 or Pixel 9 Pro Folds to be purchased, like I think, they're going to be discounted. And so like, I think a lot of people might, who want to make the jump to foldables might look at these two products and be like, the Tensor G4 is not a bad chip, even if G5 ends up being much more efficient. Like I still have 6 years of upgrades left. Let me just buy the one that's cheaper, and I'll stick with like the less flashy color. But I don't know. It's always possible they surprise us. But if this thing is just like a slight revision for another $1,800, I really struggle to think of this moving in any meaningful numbers. I'm not sure the 9 Pro Fold moved in meaningful numbers, but I think this one will suffer even further.
You raise some really good points. My biggest kind of stumbling block with the 10 Pro Fold is why are they releasing this alongside the 10? I kind of understand they need to do it from an optics perspective, but would it have not made more sense to be like, okay, we're going to do one of these every 18 months and change the release cycle to not have everything at the same time, and go back to having one, say, at I/O, and then basically kind of court people at that point of the year and have people, well, maybe they don't want people to wait. They want people to be able to buy everything day one and everybody buys their device at the same time.
No, I like this. There's foldables in general need to convince people to buy them. Like we are 5, almost 6 full year, right? Like the original Galaxy Fold is September or October of 2019, right? And so we're coming up on the anniversary of that, and I still think most people have not been convinced that they need these products. And I think to that point, kind of meshing it with mine, Damien, it's like, if Google was like, and we're keeping the Pixel 9 Pro Fold around for another generation, we're not done with foldables. We have really exciting things coming down the pike. But for now, if you want to try a foldable for the first time, great news. the Pixel 9 Pro Fold is now available for $12.99 or something. Like,
or even make it cheaper.
Yeah,
make it $12.99. You get a watch and some earbuds thrown in. Like, that would be the best way to do it, right?
Right, because I think what these companies need to do now that the hardware is starting to feel less compromised is that they need to convince people that these are form factors they want, and the only way you're going to do that is by offering some pretty astounding deals that we have not seen for the most part, outside of like the OnePlus Open had some good deals, but it took a year, which is similar to what I'm describing here. But that was a slightly less modern piece of hardware. Like even, that's 12 point whatever millimeters or whatever. This is a more modern device. Why not keep it around for another generation instead of just doing this kind of, half-assed refresh? And this is all, Abner makes really good points that like, we don't know what the software is like on this thing, but I don't think we're expecting a power or performance jump from G4 to G5 that would prevent Google from putting whatever they have planned for the 10 Pro Fold's software onto the 9 Pro Fold. And in fact, we'll probably, especially if it's multitasking, I would imagine that comes backwards. So I don't know. Like I think it would have probably been smart to do that. They're obviously not doing it because we've seen these leaks. But yeah, that's, to any company making foldables, I think that would be my advice at this point, which is find a way to convince people to get these products, through pricing for the most part.
I guess it doesn't have the biggest problem is just that Samsung went out first. Like obviously they've already done their S25 at the start of the year. Google's 8 months later or so, 7-8 months later down the line, they release their slab phones. They're also releasing their foldables at the same time. And I feel like even Samsung are doing that thing where they have split it up. And I feel like that might be the best way for Google to do it. If we're going to get the A series, I feel like the best way to probably do it would be to have around the I/O period. Maybe if they turn Android Show into something yearly where they release a product, they could release the A series, they could release the foldable, and have these two kind of bookend devices, one at the lowest end, one at the highest end in terms of the price points, and be like, hey, these are the bleeding edge of low end and high end, because you do have a bleeding edge of cheap phones, and I do think the A series is probably the poster child for that. Like this is our cheapest. This is probably one of the best cheap phones on the market. This is also our current best of the best for holding, does everything. I don't know. It's all optics, I guess, and hopefully they can prove us wrong. But the jury's out. I'm not convinced this one's going to be a good one. I was pretty underwhelmed with certain aspects of the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, even though I really love the product. I just think, maybe they've dropped the ball a little bit this time around, but I don't know. You're going to upgrade to this, Abner. You tell me what you think. Are you just praying that it's going to be decent? Are we being too pessimistic,
Abner? Like talk us off the ledge.
Again, it's again with the software. Nothing from Android has indicated that there's a big upgrade here. So that's the issue. Again, it has to come down to the app level improvements that make using a foldable phone somehow more unique, introducing new things that you can really do with the hardware, whether it's like a tent mode or what, but we're not there yet. And I don't think AI alone, especially AI from the slab style Pro phones, would be enough to carry it over. I don't know, maybe they do something fun with Gemini and multitasking, but again, I don't think we're there just yet.
Can I tell you guys the most like heartbreaking moment I've had with foldables, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about the Pixel Watch 4. Last year, when I was using the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, I think I had already reviewed it and maybe had switched away and then switched back or kept using it. I can't remember. I was like, oh my God, I've like gotten into Balatro. Do you know what would be like perfect for Balatro is the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. Like, oh my God, this is my Balatro machine now. It just doesn't render great on that, like,
no, it
basically
doesn't look good,
way. It just and that's a pretty common thing with games. But I was like, certainly Balatro will like just the layout. I was like, sure, it's wide, but I think it'll scale well, and it's playable, but it's not It's not what I wanted it to be. And I was like, I think, am I just waiting for a trifold? I might just be waiting for a trifold.
I was thinking that this weekend, but I think the trifold is the way it's going to go because it's that form factor we're waiting for. But you alluded to something that is weird with regards to charging and weird form factors. We need to touch on this before we kind of shoot off. Is the Pixel Watch 4 changing charging method? I don't understand what this process. What the heck?
The way the exhaustion in your voice, Damien, as you said that.
So I guess I'm a bit in the minority here because I kind of do think contact pin-based charging is quote unquote wireless in that you're not plugging like a plug or a port into, but I don't think most people have that definition. So the Pixel Watch 4, according to the latest retail leaks, it has moved the charging pins from the back of the back of the watch to the side. It flanks the speaker port, so there are 2 charging pins there. So the new charger, instead of going from a puck that you place on the back, it becomes this oval thing that effectively doubles as a stand. And I hope it's weighty enough. So you put the left edge of the Pixel Watch on it and you get a bedside clock, though. Again, like the screen size is too like middle of the night. You're looking for the time. It's not that great. The question is whether it's an always on charging clock, which, because like the current one, if you tap the screen, you'll see the time, the charger, your alarm, all that software-wise isn't new. The question is whether this allows for an AOD, which again, like it's a small screen size, so maybe it's efficient enough, and you're always connected to power. So I hope there's no heat issues. But the charger, it's not wireless. People wanted wireless charging because they want to charge the back of their phones or they want to use a standard charging pad and whatnot. But for the 3rd year in a row since the Pixel Watch 2 change, we're continuing to use pin-based charging. And personally, I'm fine with it. I think wireless charging on a watch, something that small, gets pretty warm. I feel like I noticed that with when I use wireless charging on Pixel Buds, AirPods, etc. It gets a bit warm because of the physical dimensions, and I wouldn't want a watch to get that hot.
Yeah, especially if you're putting it on your skin, right? You don't want that. But I just want Google to just, can we stop changing the charging methods every time? I have so many cables. I just want to have one universal cable. Can we, if they're going to do anything, can we just make it USB-C? Just make a hole in the side and I can put USB-C in there. Because
the OnePlus method.
If that ever happens, it's going to be on the back. Like you're going to spear it like a magic mouse. Like that's what's going to end up being.
Well, I really like the OnePlus method, right? Like I think, and Damien, you have a OnePlus Watch 3, I think.
I
right?
do, yeah.
But
I'm wearing it right now.
I think that's such a good middle ground of like, look, like it has to be, it has to be some kind of like proprietary thing. So here's a little thing, and then, but that's all. You don't need to build, bring a special cable. It's just this little brick, and then you plug any USB-C cable into it. And so I just, for travel, it's so much smarter. It's such a smarter idea.
It's so much nicer.
It's so much easier to not forget because it's like, okay, well, even if you pick up a second one, you can just keep it in your, and it takes up no space in your backpack in the way that like even a cable takes up a little more room, or you might mistake it for a different cable. I really like the OnePlus strategy. I'm so split on this. I actually think this is a really clever design. I think it's clever that this is going to be in the box and have this. And Abner, I think you're totally right. I think they're going to build a lot of software features around this idea of. I do think it will be an always on display, and that it will have like essentially a little mini bedtime mode in the way that like an Android phone can. I love that like because of the placement of the crown. It looks like a very tiny alarm clock, like a traditional alarm clock. There's something so cute about the idea of like reaching over and like slapping it with your palm to stop the alarm in the morning or something. Now, obviously, they'd have to like crank up the speaker or something. It probably wouldn't work. But like in my head, I'm like, that's so cute. I think really the reason that I'm like, I saw this and I like rolled my eyes is because this is the Pixel Watch 4, and it's our third new, like as you said, David, it's her third new charger. And they made such a big deal last year out of like, don't worry guys, we're not changing it from the 2 to the 3. It's sticking around. Like I had these conversations during content capture before the launch where they were like, yep, don't worry, we're keeping it around. That pin-based charger around, not changing it this year. So your chargers from last year will work this year. And that's not true again. And I hate to bring up the Apple Watch in this comparison, but it's like any Apple Watch charger will charge any Apple Watch to my knowledge. I am pretty sure you could go find an OG 2015 Apple Watch charger and like slap a Series 10 on it. And it's not going to be super fast, but it will power it up. And I think it's so frustrating that it's like, even let's say someone is upgrading from the 2, maybe someone out there bought a Pixel Watch 1, didn't like how bad the battery life was, so bought a Pixel Watch, like traded it in and got a Pixel Watch 2, skipped the 3 because they were happy with their 2, and are like, well, now I want the 4, and are going to end up with like their third charger. Like none of these chargers work together. It's a bit of a mess, I think, and I really hope they stick to this one. But I remember yelling at them 2 years ago about this on the podcast, and I'm yelling at them now. So who knows?
I think Google they're in search of elegance, right? They want an elegant design solution. This, don't get me wrong, it is a very elegant design solution. Charging solution, and it's well designed. My only wish list for this is, why don't they make this into a mini Nest Hub? And put that and make it a tiny little Nest Hub at the side of my bed with all the photos. That would be fantastic. I know it's
really
too small,
hope
but they won't do that. But
I don't know. I hope they do. I hope they do something cute with it where it's like, no, like, sure, it's a very, like, it's a 1-inch screen or whatever, but yeah, it'll just show you some photos from your memories or something. I think that's a clever idea that I don't think, as small as the display is, I don't think is like completely unreasonable as an optional toggle you can turn on. Like, I think, I wouldn't be able to see them perhaps with my glasses off, but with my glasses on, I would be able to see the photos and I'd have a great time. So I don't know.
And another con here is that you would think that the end goal here is to get people to wear their watches to sleep, to get the sleep
we do have to
benefits,
talk about this. Yeah,
all that. And I guess this side charger is an explicit acknowledgement that some people just don't want to wear it to bed, but they still want the benefits of an alarm clock, et cetera. But yeah, it's, I don't know, it's elegant, like we said. The thing is, even with the existing charger and the existing as the default active band, it pops up naturally, I would say. Like if you use a different band, it probably, like, it's easier to flop. But I think most people already have their Pixel Watch in this configuration rather than laying it flat on the underside of the charger. Okay.
Maybe that's the reasoning for to do this. Maybe they were like, well, we're scratching the side of the glass. We may as well make a solution that prevents that from happening. Maybe, I don't know. It could be a durability benefit, I guess. It's fascinating to see the potential charging machinations of Pixel 10 and Pixel Watch 4 and Pixel 10 Pro Fold. So, hey, we'll be above all areas charging in the coming weeks. Hopefully we'll see some cool accessories as well to take advantage of this. I don't know how third-party accessories are going to work, because if you've got a bumper on your Pixel Watch 3 currently, it's probably not going to work with the Pixel Watch 4. So there's going to be some disappointed people out there and some disappointed accessory makers. But I think on the whole, how do we feel about the colours and everything? Are we kind of happy with it, or I don't know? I'm content, I guess.
They match the 10 basically, and so I don't know. I'm okay with it. I always pick neutral tones for my smartwatches anyway. So I guess like the including the limoncello or the indigo is good for some people, but I don't think it's what I would wear on my wrist. I'd want something black or gray or white.
It's not noticeable. What color you pick for your watch is really not noticeable. The band is more encompassing, and you pick neutral colors. You works with most bands. I think Google keeps that very much in mind when they decide case colors, how the band works with it. So Yeah.
Yeah, well, we will be hopefully seeing more of the Pixel Watch 4, Pixel 10, everything in the coming weeks. Hey, we've talked a lot about chargers, we've talked a lot about really inconsequential design decisions, but yeah, thanks for joining me, guys. Really appreciate it. Hopefully everyone out there has picked a color that they want. I don't know what I'm going to decide on yet, but we have time on our side. But thanks for joining us, and yeah, I'll speak to you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.